Welcome to the special supplemental nutrition program for women, infants, and children, Infant and Toddler Feeding Practices Study 2, also known as WIC ITFPS 2. WESTAT conducts WIC ITFPS 2 under contract to the Food and Nutrition Service of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. This is the first in a series of 6 short webinars providing information on this study. This webinar will focus on the design and methods used in the study. WIC ITFPS 2 is also known as the Feeding My Baby study. The study is a longitudinal examination of the feeding practices among mothers who originally enrolled in WIC prenatally or shortly after giving birth. The study follows the enrolled child until he or she is 6 years old. Once enrolled in the study, WIC ITFPS 2 participants remain eligible for the study regardless of whether they continue with WIC. It's important to note that portions of the current study were adapted from a previous study conducted in the 1990s, the WIC Infant Feeding Practices Study 1, also known as WIC IFPS 1. However, WIC IFPS 1 only followed children during the first year of life, and as I previously mentioned, WIC ITFPS 2 follows children until they turn 6. This is the first of 6 webinars on WIC ITFPS 2. This webinar covers study design and methods. Other webinars cover findings from the study. Topics include prenatal beliefs, breastfeeding initiation, and young infant feeding, introduction of complementary foods and feeding older infants, work, childcare, and developmental progression in feeding, food intake, and weight and growth. WIC ITFPS 2 is a national longitudinal study. In-person recruitment for the study was undertaken between July and November of 2013. During this period, each site had a recruitment window, a period of time when WESTAT staff were on site actively recruiting participants. The graphic on this slide depicts states with 1 or more study sites. In all, 80 sites across 27 state agencies are participating in the study. They are distributed across the country. How were these sites selected? The sample for the study was selected using a stratified 2-stage sampling approach that had a twist. The first stage had 2 phases. This slide depicts Phase 1. Phase 1 began by selecting 4,979 units from the WIC Program and Participant Characteristics 2010 data, or PC 2010 data. These units were either sites or local agencies, depending on the type of ID the state agency reported in the PC 2010 data. From these units, those in American Samoa, Guam, Northern Mariana Islands, and the U.S. Virgin Islands were dropped from the sampling frame. These represented about 0.3% of the frame, so dropping them did not impact the representativeness of the frame. Additionally, sites with less than a minimum average flow of 1.5 new enrollees per day were dropped. This yielded a sample frame of 1,834 units. These units were stratified into 40 strata, depending on 5 characteristics: the existence of a peer counseling program, the use of trained paraprofessionals for nutrition education, whether formula is provided in the first month, the percentage of women receiving the full breastfeeding food package, and the percentage of mothers and children with high weight for height. From each of the 40 strata, 4 units were chosen to create the Phase 2 sampling frame of 160 units. In Phase 2 of Stage 1, the state agencies were contacted to confirm eligibility of each unit that had been selected. Among the 160 sampling units, 2 units from each of the 40 stratum were selected, yielding a total of 80 units. In Stage 2, if the unit selected was a local agency rather than a service sites within the sampled local agency were selected. The final result was 80 sites across 27 state agencies. The recruitment goal was to enroll 55 participants per site during the recruitment window. For more information on the sampling selection process, please refer to Appendix B1 in the second-year report. Eligible participants were pregnant women or women with an infant less than 2.5 months old. They had to be enrolling in WIC for the pregnancy or the child for the first time. This does not mean they could not have other children enrolled in WIC, only that they were enrolling for the first time for this particular pregnancy or child. The mother had to be at least 16 years old and had to speak English or Spanish. WESTAC conducted in-person enrollment in 80 sites, enrolling a total of 4,367 mothers who throughout the study are also referred to as caregivers. Those enrolled were assigned to either the core or the supplemental sample. The core sample received all interviews. The supplemental sample received certain interviews to increase the precision of estimates at key points in time. More information on the differences between the core and the supplemental samples are described in Chapter 1 of the second-year report. WESTAC conducted regular computer-assisted telephone interviews with participants. In the first year, the interviews took place almost every other month. In the second year, the interviews took place less frequently, but still regularly, up to 4 times in the second year. Respondents were offered $20 for completing each interview. The core sample was interviewed 11 times over the first 2 years, while the supplemental sample was interviewed 4 times. In addition to collecting survey and dietary recall information from participants, data from WIC state agencies and WIC sites were collected. For state agency interviews, the state WIC director identified appropriate staff for telephone interviews. At WIC sites, in-person interviews were conducted with the site supervisor or coordinator and other staff identified by the state or site. Additionally, data were collected during site visits and through an online staff survey administered at participating WIC sites. WESTAT obtained weight and length information from WIC administrative data for those receiving WIC and from healthcare providers for those not receiving WIC. Maternal food package data were collected at prenatal and postnatal certifications as applicable and at 6 months. Infant food package data were collected at initial infant certification, 6-month mid-certification, and 11 months. Food package data are not collected after 11 months because there is only one non-medical food package for children ages 1 to 4 years. A wide range of topics are covered in this study. Survey information includes sociodemographic characteristics, maternal health and lifestyle, feeding experience and practices, and hospital experience. These can be examined in conjunction with site characteristics, food package information, dietary recall information, and measurement data. Thus, the study offers a robust data set of feeding information on children originally enrolled in WIC either prenatally or prior to 2.5 months of age. This slide displays the source of information. The rows list data domains and the columns indicate data collections. Check marks indicate that at least some elements from the domain are covered in the corresponding data collection. So, for example, sociodemographic characteristics are collected at most interviews, while hospital feeding-related information is collected only at the 1-month interview. Starting with the infant year report, the analysis sample consists of those who answered their first postnatal interview. If the mother enrolled prenatally, this was the 1-month interview. If the mother enrolled the child postnatally, this was likely the 3-month interview. There are 3,777 cases in the analysis sample, which is the group followed throughout the study. For analysis, the 3,777 cases in the analysis sample are weighted so that results represent the study-eligible population. This slide and the next offer a few sociodemographic characteristics of study participants. More can be found in Table 1-7 in the WIC ITFPS 2 second-year report. It is important to note that to the extent possible, effort was made to conform to the sociodemographic categories used in the WIC Infant Feeding Practices Study 1, or WIC IFPS 1, so that the findings could be compared. In WIC ITFPS 2, race and ethnicity questions are asked separately. 59% of the respondents identify as white, 26% as African American, and 15% are categorized in a catch-all category called Other. This category contains all respondents who did not self-identify as white or African American, including those who indicated multiple races. In addition, 62% of the sample is non-Hispanic and 38% is Hispanic. 47% of the sample was 26 years old when the child was born. 41% was between 20 and 25 years old when the child was born, and 12% were between 16 and 19 years of age. For 41% of the sample, this was the first child in the family. For 27%, it was the second child in the family. And for 32%, the child was the third or subsequent born. More information about the study design and methods is available at https://www.fns.usda.gov/research-analysis. The infant year report and the second year report can both be found on this site by searching under WIC ITFPS-2. Public use data can be requested from the Food and Nutrition Service at opsdatarequests@usda.gov. Bivariate analyses can be quickly run using the public use data files by accessing WESTAX at https://wesdax.com/wicpublic.ashx.